You don't see it often these days, but when MLB players lose it completely on the mound, it's always unforgettable. These are the 5 most insane, iconic, and downright unhinged meltdowns the league has ever seen. So grab your glove and maybe a helmet because things are about to get heated. Let's kick things off with Hunter Strickland, the quiet man on a revenge mission. It was May 29th, 2017. Nationals versus Giants, and Bryce Harper was not in the mood for games. In the 8th inning, Giants reliever Hunter Strickland drilled Harper with a 98-mile-per-hour fastball straight to the hip. No warning, and it sure as hell didn't look like an accident. Harper glared at Strickland for what felt like an eternity, and just before anyone could react, the helmet was off, fingers were pointed, and Bryce charged like a raging bull.
Whoa! History. And Bryce Harper wants a piece of Hunter Strickland. Here they go. Strickland lands a punch. Harper lands a punch.
Fans in the stadium felt it was intentional. Even the commentators agreed. But here's the wild part. This fight wasn't random. This was 3 years of bad blood boiling over. Back in 2014, during the NLDS, Harper had crushed Strickland with 2 absolute bombs, and he made sure Strickland knew it. But Strickland? He waited 3 full seasons for his revenge.
That was unintentional. Hunter Strickland just totally lost his command.
We told you there was history, and that goes back to the playoffs a couple of years ago.
The only downside to this brutal fight was the poor Michael Morse, Harper's own teammate, who took a shot and suffered a season-ending concussion trying to break up the chaos. The fallout wasn't too wild, but Harper got a 4-game suspension that was later reduced to 3. Strickland, though, got 6 games. But Morse suffered the most from that wild scuffle, standing up for himself. That fastball could have crushed him. What do you think? Tell us in the comments. We've got to throw it back a few decades to the 80s for this one. It was top of the 9th in a fairly heated Royals versus Yankees game. George Brett stepped up to the plate and launched a go-ahead 2-run bomb off Goose Gossage. The whole Yankee Stadium went mute, while the Royals fans rejoiced that they'd won the game.
Uh-oh. That's gone. And now the Royals have the 1-run lead.
Brett was still celebrating his vicious game winner when Billy Martin made one of the craziest moves Major League has ever seen. The Yankees manager asked the umps to inspect Brett's bat. He argued the pine tar extends too far up the barrel, violating MLB's 18-inch rule.
Brett has just homered, and Billy Martin and the Yankees want the bat.
The umpires listened to Martin's protests. They measured, huddled together, and then they called Brett out. Home run erased. Game over. And that's when George Brett completely lost his mind.
They might be going to call George Brett out.
Well, the Yankees win. He's out.
Yes,
Brett is out. Look at this.
You'd almost think the game was a World Series with the way Brett exploded out of the dugout, full sprint, like a madman. But man, that was a cruel call by the umpire. It's enough to make anyone go crazy. Even the commentators claimed they've never seen anything like it.
Now they're going to measure it across home plate.
Well, I've never seen this.
I never have either.
A fan hilariously commented, George Brett would have beaten Usain Bolt that day if they both left the dugout at the same time. Honestly, you can't dispute that assertion. Just look at him. The Royals furiously protested the game. AL President Lee MacPhail had no choice but to reverse the call, reinstate the homer, and order the game resumed from that point weeks later. Even though it was a fair ruling, that beautiful home run should never have been erased in the first place. When you talk about baseball rage, this right here is the gold standard. This wasn't just a meltdown, it was baseball's version of a courtroom drama. And that slow-motion shot of Brett charging the ump? Still played 40 years later. I'm not sure how tall Amir Garrett is, but he damn near obliterated the whole Pirates bench all by himself. So it all went down on July 30th, 2019, when the Reds took on the Pirates on home turf. It was late in the game. Emotions are boiling. The Pirates' benches had already been cleared once earlier that season for trolling. This time, the target was Amir Garrett. The Pirates' bench kept jawing at him. Garrett's pacing the mound, seething. Then, out of nowhere, he drops his glove and sprints straight at the Pirates' dugout. Solo. No backup, just fists and fury.
And now there's some serious chirping coming from the Pirates dugout. And now Garrett's on his way to the dugout, and here we go. Oh! Garrett goes in there punching. This is not a good scene at all.
I don't know who he went after, but he got in there, and he is right in the middle of it.
Not gonna lie, that left hook was crazy, so clean. Whoever was on the receiving end of that must have had their jaw swollen for days. Every single person, from players to coaches on both sides, swarmed Garrett like bees. Even manager David Bell, who'd been ejected earlier, ran back out to throw himself into the pile.
I think he asked Yachty right here, like, hey, someone throwing at me? Is that intentional? What's going on? Maybe that's what he's asking him right there. And Yachty says, no, no, no. And then he goes and he gathers the ball and he looks at the pitch and he says, you want this one? Or you want a new one?
Garrett got suspended for 8 games. Pretty sure he served those 8 games with a cheeky smile. Pirates' Keone, who'd started the beef with a chin music fastball, got 10 games. Multiple others were suspended for throwing punches or escalating the fight. Simply put, everyone got served.
Third base. And now he's real close to home plate, which is where this all started. Moose is in the box. Wild pitch off Yachty's glove. He comes home. Slow-mo play at the plate. Pitcher kind of lands on him.
Garrett later apologized, saying, I got out of character. That's not who I am. But if you ask 1,000 fans, they are all going to tell you the same thing. They loved it. Twitter exploded with memes. One Reddit post called it the greatest I'll do it myself moment in MLB history. Honestly, this wasn't just a fight. It was a statement. Garrett didn't wait for the benches to clear. He was the bench clearing. And whether you saw it as madness or passion, nobody's forgetting the day Amir Garrett turned into a one-man army. There's no way we compile a list of the craziest moments in Major League and not add this blockbuster in the Rangers versus Blue Jays game in 2016. It was the bottom of the 8th, 2 outs, and a serious grudge that had been simmering for months. Blue Jays slugger Jose Bautista takes off for second base and slides hard into Rougned Odor. No apology, no backing down, just tension you could feel from the cheap seats. Odor pops up, stares down Bautista, and then delivers a full-on no-gloves right hook haymaker to his jaw. That is one of the cleanest right hooks you'll ever see today or any day in baseball. Just look at that. You gotta know this wasn't just a brawl. This was the release of months of tension that started during the 2015 ALDS. Bautista's epic bat flip that year had already made him a villain in Texas. Odor obviously got a 7-game suspension. Bautista got just 1, but that punch alone must feel like 365 days combined. Things had gotten so intense at that point that MLB had no choice but to address the rising hostility between these two teams. Some fans called Odor a hothead, but a whole lot more called him a folk hero. That punch had more velocity than half the bullpen, one fan joked. Another said, that was the best punch in baseball history. Honestly, that fan isn't wrong. That punch alone ended a rivalry and started a new meme generation. It's rare to see a hit in baseball that doesn't come off a bat, but this one still echoes through the sport today. This battle is the least violent on the list, but it was an unforgettable one for Manny Ramirez. It was June 5th, 2008. The Red Sox were winning, Manny Ramirez was racking up RBIs, and suddenly there's a scuffle on the bench. Cameras caught it, and right there was Manny lunging at Kevin Youkilis mid-inning. While there isn't any clear footage, reports say no punches were landed. But the energy? Tense, toxic, and weird. It's one thing to brawl with an opponent, it's another to scrap with the guy hitting behind you in the lineup. So, why? Turns out, Manny had been getting fed up with Youkilis for a while. Youk had a habit of slamming his bat and helmet after strikeouts. Manny thought it was selfish and distracting. And that night, he'd had enough. The Sox played the situation cool publicly. There was no official suspension. But behind the scenes, things were unraveling. Within 2 months, Boston traded Manny to the Dodgers in a blockbuster deal. Some fans truly believed Manny just had to go. Others thought Youk needed to chill with the dramatics. Either way, it was clear. The vibes were off. This wasn't an iconic brawl like Brett or Harper, but it was the first real crack in the Red Sox's foundation. Because when your 2 best hitters are going at each other, you know the clubhouse is about to explode. If you've been following baseball long enough, you'd know that not every outburst becomes a highlight. Plenty of players slam a helmet or argue a call, and we forget it by next Tuesday. But these moments right here, they hit different. Because they weren't just about bad calls or bruised egos. They were personal, emotional, legendary. So whether you were cheering for Harper's charge, laughing at Brett's rage, or stunned by Garrett's one-man brawl, you probably remember exactly where you were when it happened. And hey, if you've got a favorite MLB meltdown we didn't mention, drop it in the comments. We know there's more. You should also subscribe for more baseball chaos.